An Ontario court has struck down the province's plan to remove bike lanes on 3 busy streets in Toronto. The province said this move would ease traffic, but a judge decided that changing the lanes from bicycles to vehicles would not reduce congestion, and it would increase the danger for cyclists, violating their charter right to life and security. Ithil Musa is covering the story. And Ithil, tell us more about the court decision.
Yeah, that's right, Ian. Justice Paul Chabis basically argued that, tearing away those bike lanes in downtown Toronto will not get rid of, Toronto's notorious traffic congestion, that it will make the roads less safe for cyclists as well as other road users. And replacing those bike lanes with more lanes for cars, it will just lead to more people using their cars. This decision comes after cycling advocates asked an Ontario court last December to strike down parts of a law that allowed the Ontario government to basically rip up 19 kilometers of protected bike lanes. Last year, 6 Toronto cyclists were killed on roads that did not have bike lanes. Advocates say they are critical infrastructure, especially when it comes to keeping cyclists safe. CBC News spoke to a cycling advocate who's actually part of this legal action that brought about this decision. Here's some of what he had to say.
Premier's claims that this is being done to address traffic congestion, that's not borne out by the facts, that bike lanes are actually part of the solution to cities like Toronto dealing with traffic mitigation, and so ripping them out wouldn't have any effect on it at all. If anything, it might make traffic worse.
Justice Chabis relied on the research of experts when, coming to his decision. Earlier today, I actually spoke to one of them, Ian, who was a witness in this case. They have a background in engineering. They spoke to me about what the research tells us when it comes to bike lanes.
This is settled scientific and engineering fact that bike lanes decrease congestion, increasing car lanes increases congestion. Even the province's own experts have told them that. This is not debatable. When you build more car space, more people drive. And we've seen over and over again in Toronto, around the world, that when you increase car lanes, you get an increase in congestion.
Ithil, I got to say, I love where you've decided to do this hit, because we really are seeing that combination of vehicles and bicycles and pedestrians that is so common in cities, and especially downtown Toronto. What's the province's response been to this court decision?
Well, Ian, the province is essentially doubling down, maintaining their justification for, tearing away those bike lanes, saying that it will ease congestion in the city. The province says it will appeal this decision. CBC News got the chance to speak to Premier Doug Ford at an event in Brampton earlier today. Here's some of what he had to say.
I believe, and I know the people of Ontario believe, that they elect parties to make decisions. They don't elect judges. And we'll be appealing it, and we'll see how the appeal goes. That's it.
It's important also to note, Ian, that the City of Toronto, or Toronto City Council, is against the province on this issue. They issued a statement on behalf of the mayor earlier today, essentially saying that when it comes to municipal infrastructure, these kinds of decisions should be left up to elected municipal councillors.
Ithil Musa, right next to a bike lane and a vehicle path in downtown Toronto. Thank you. Okay, we heard some of the frustration from the Premier, Doug Ford. Is it a fair criticism of the courts? Jeffrey Siglet is the director of the UBC Research Group for Constitutional Law, and he's also an assistant professor of political science at UBC. He joins us from Kelowna. And Jeffrey, first of all, what's your assessment of the judge's decision here?
My sense is I'm a cyclist. I'm a fan of cycling, of biking lanes, and my assessment is that it is strayed a bit far into a policy-making area that should be primarily something that democratically elected legislators are responsible for. In terms of the way the court makes this decision, he does something clever. The charter is not supposed to protect positive rights, so you don't have a positive right to different kinds of things from the government, but it's supposed to be primarily negative. And so what the justice holds is not that there is a constitutional right to a bike lane. He's very keen to deny that he's making that holding. He says that there's a right to not have bike lanes removed once they're there because it arbitrarily and disproportionately endangers the lives and security of cyclists. And my view is that it's a bit bizarre to have judges entering into the sphere, and that it doesn't quite pass the smell test in terms of he seems to be creating a quasi-positive right potentially here.
So that's interesting, and people can find a link to this decision on the CBC website and read it for themselves. Couple of things that the judge went through in his analysis here, as you know. First of all, in terms of this claim by the province that changing this from a bike lane to a vehicle lane would reduce vehicle congestion. And the judge said, well, no, the evidence shows that if you add a lane, then more cars will, show up, will drive, more people will drive, fewer people will choose alternates like bicycles. And he said the evidence clearly shows that it wouldn't reduce congestion. That was number one. And then number two, he said that it also would increase the danger to cyclists. So there's a sense of arbitrariness, he said, in the government's decision. And when you put those two things together, he says it's very clear that that removing these bike lanes would violate the cyclist right to life and security. I know you don't like the sort of policy making on the part of the judge. What do you think of his analysis of what I just said?
Oh, well, I would say one interesting thing about that, though, is think about the judge needs to think a few steps ahead. So if there's a right against removing bike lanes, it may actually be long-term, not in the evidence presented to him necessarily. There's a sort of small artificial window of the evidence that he gets from different kinds of advocacy groups, right? It may be that having a constitutional right to not be able to rip out bike lanes makes municipalities in the province more reticent to put in bike lanes because they can't come out. There's a constitutional right now. It's also a case that we have a constitutional housing. We don't have a constitutional crisis of housing. We have a housing crisis in this country. The last election it featured fairly prominently in the last federal election, features in provincial elections. Do we really want charter litigation to be part of that?
Yeah, so it's very interesting to hear from you, an expert in constitutional analysis, and here we have the charter being invoked as a reason to keep these bike lanes in Toronto. But you pointing out that maybe the judge, overstepped what role he should have, and so. You mentioned you're a cyclist at the beginning of this. Presumably you like the public policy of having bicycle lanes. So how should this issue be dealt with?
My view is that the charter is there for negative rights protections of specific types that are within the judicial lane. And this gets out of the judicial lane just because it involves so many complicated empirical kinds of judgments. And the judge himself should recognize and have a bit more humility about how well equipped he is to make calls about these things and even distinguish the types of the evidence before him. And I guess, you're right. I am a cyclist. I'm not necessarily against the policy. I like bike lanes as a good member of the laptop class. And it's part of why I'm underdressed for this interview.
All right. Well, listen, it's great having your analysis, Jeffrey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
Jeffrey Siglet is the director of the UBC Research Group for Constitutional Law. He's in Kelowna.